Stop looking for the tanks. If you are waiting for a column of armour to roll down Main Street, or for a general to seize the television station, you are preparing for a war that ended 50 years ago. That is the Hollywood version of regime change. It is loud, obvious, and comforting because it gives you a clear signal to run. But in the 21st century, democracies do not die with a bang. They do not even die in the dark. They die in broad daylight, under the fluorescent lights of a courtroom, buried in the subclauses of a legislative reform bill, and stamped with the official seal of a democratically elected leader. The history books call it democratic backsliding. I call it the legal grey zone. And right now, you need to understand that the greatest threat to your liberty isn't a foreign invader kicking down your door. It is a bureaucrat quietly rewriting the terms of service on your citizenship. I am Tom. This is Survival Curriculum, and today we are not talking about water filters or bunker depths. We are running a system check on the machinery of the state itself. We are going to map out the 6 stages of autocracy, from the first subtle purge to the final lock-in. We are going to walk through the specific, visceral scenarios of how this feels on the ground, not in a textbook, but in your driveway. Secure your attention. Let's begin. Most preppers fantasize about the collapse of the rule of law. They stock ammo for a Mad Max world where there are no rules. But the reality of modern authoritarianism is the exact opposite. You are not facing a lack of laws. You are facing an excess of them. You are facing a hyper-legalistic system where the law is weaponized against you. The roadmap we are using today is drawn from comparative political science and the real-world collapse of democracies in Hungary, Venezuela, and Turkey. This is not speculation. This is a forensic analysis of a crime scene that keeps repeating. We are going to break this down into stages. For each stage, I will put you in a specific scenario. I want you to visualize it. Then we will look at the failed reaction, what the sheep do. Then the logistics, what you must do. And finally, the complication, why this is harder than you think. If you want to survive the next decade, you need to understand this roadmap better than you understand your own commute. If you value this level of detailed threat analysis, make sure you have secured your spot for future briefings. Now, let's look at Stage 0. It starts on a Tuesday. Not with an explosion, but with an email. You work for a mid-level government agency. Maybe it is the EPA, maybe the Department of Education, maybe a state-level regulatory body. For 20 years, the person in the corner office has been Bob. Bob is boring. Bob is a career civil servant who cares about compliance codes and lunch breaks. He is annoying, but he is neutral. He is the guardrail. But today, Bob is gone. Security escorted him out at 9 a.m. By noon, his replacement arrives. He is young, wears a sharp suit, and has no experience in your field. What he does have is a history of aggressive tweets supporting the new president, and a lapel pin that signals his allegiance. He calls an all-hands meeting. He doesn't talk about regulations or public safety. He talks about mission alignment. He talks about clearing out the deep state rot. The temperature in the room drops 10 degrees. You look around at your colleagues. Half of them are staring at their shoes. The other half are nodding enthusiastically, smiling a little too wide. You return to your desk and find your access to certain databases has been revoked. Under review, the IT ticket says. This is not a drill. This is infiltration. The state apparatus is being hollowed out from the inside, replacing competence with loyalty. You feel a knot in your stomach, not because you are in immediate danger, but because the machinery that kept the system neutral just broke. Here is how the majority reacts to the purge of the civil service. They cheer. Or they shrug. The narrative sold to the public is seductive. They are told that the bureaucracy is bloated, corrupt, and inefficient. They are told that the new leader is just draining the swamp, or making government work again. Your neighbour, who runs a small business and hates paperwork, thinks this is great news. He tells you, about time they fired those paper pushers. He does not see that the paper pusher was the only thing stopping the executive branch from awarding contracts to his cousin or investigating political rivals for tax fraud. Inside the agency, the reaction is denial. The people who weren't fired think they are safe. They think, if I just keep my head down and do my job, I'll be fine. They rationalise the loyalty oaths. They rationalise the new, strange directives. They tell themselves it is just a pendulum swing and things will go back to normal in 4 years. This is the normalisation of pathology. They treat a structural dismantling of democracy as a personnel issue. They wait for the union to sue. They wait for the courts to intervene. They treat the new appointees as colleagues rather than political commissars. By the time they realise their mistake, they have unwittingly trained their own replacements. Let's talk survival logistics for stage 1. The threat here is selective enforcement and economic exclusion. If the bureaucracy is captured, neutrality is dead. That means your safety depends on your profile. First, conduct a personal risk assessment. Do you rely on government contracts, grants, or regulatory approval for your livelihood? If you do, you are now vulnerable to economic strangulation. You need to diversify your income immediately. Get money out of the jurisdiction if possible, or at least into sectors that the state ignores. Second, watch the gatekeepers. Do not listen to the speeches, watch the firing lists. Are they firing policy experts and hiring political operatives? That is your signal. If you work inside the system, practice grey man tactics at the office. Scrub your social media. Do not discuss politics in the break room. Assume every conversation is being recorded or reported by that enthusiastic colleague in the next cubicle. But more importantly, prepare for the breakdown of services. When competence is replaced by loyalty, things break. Trains run late. Water quality drops. Permits get lost. Build resilience against infrastructure decay. This isn't the apocalypse yet. It's just the era of incompetence. Have backups for utilities and official documents. If you need a passport or a property deed, get it now, while the old system still barely functions. Once the loyalists are fully entrenched, you won't get a document stamped without a bribe or a party membership card. Here is the complication that catches the smart people off guard. You assume that because the new appointees are incompetent hacks, the government will become weak and ineffective. You assume the regime will collapse under its own stupidity. You are wrong. An authoritarian bureaucracy is selectively competent. They might be terrible at fixing potholes or managing a pandemic, but they become highly efficient at punishing enemies. The complication is what I call the weaponized incompetence. They will use the delays and the errors as a weapon. Oh, you are an opposition donor? Suddenly, your tax audit is lost in the mail for 6 years. Your building permit is denied because of a formatting error on page 90. The system works perfectly for the friends of the regime, and it is a broken labyrinth for you. You cannot sue your way out of this because they haven't technically broken the law. They are just understaffed and reviewing your case. It is the death of your rights by 1,000 administrative cuts. The alien threat here isn't a monster. It is a clerk who smiles and says, "I'm sorry, the computer says no," while knowing exactly why the computer says no. You need to be prepared for a world where the rules apply to you, but not to them. Stage 2. The legislative aggrandizement. It is late at night. You are scrolling through your phone in bed. You see a breaking news alert. Parliament, or Congress, has just passed a massive omnibus reform bill. It was introduced at 4 p.m. and voted on at 2 a.m. No one read it. The news anchors are arguing about a culture war issue buried in Section 5. Maybe something about flag burning or school prayer. It is a distraction. While the pundits scream about symbols, you download the PDF of the bill text. You search for the boring stuff. Section 402, Emergency Executive Discretion in Infrastructure Planning. Section 708, Revisions to Judicial Retirement Ages. It looks like dry legalese, but you know what you are looking at. They just removed the filibuster for appointments. They just gave the President the power to reallocate funding without legislative approval if he declares a national necessity. The sun comes up. The birds are singing. The coffee tastes the same. But the architecture of the country has shifted on its axis. The constraints are gone. The opposition party is holding a press conference, looking tired and defeated. They talk about norms and procedures, but the game is over. The regime has just legally granted itself the keys to the castle. And they did it while you were sleeping. The public reaction to legislative erosion is boredom. Complex constitutional changes are boring. They are abstract. Your friends will say, "Who cares about the retirement age of judges? How does that affect me?" They fail to connect the dots. They do not understand that by lowering the retirement age, the regime can force out 50% of the Supreme Court and fill the seats with loyalists next month. They treat these moves as politics as usual. The media helps this complacency. They frame it as a horse race. The president scores a win, rather than a structural demolition. The opposition often reacts by playing by the old rules. They make speeches. They file motions. They act as if shame is still a currency. But autocrats have no shame. The failed reaction is trusting the exit ramp. People think, well, if this is bad, we will just vote them out next time. They do not realise that the bill passed at 2 a.m. included provisions that redraw the electoral districts and change the composition of the election commission. They are waiting for the next election to fix the problem, not realising the problem was designed to fix the next election. Logistics for the era of aggrandizement. The law is now fluid. It can change overnight to target specific groups. Your survival strategy must shift from compliance to evasion. First, assume that legal does not mean safe. Just because you are following the rules today doesn't mean you won't be a criminal tomorrow when they rewrite the definition of sedition or financial impropriety. Structure your assets to withstand a freeze. If the executive can seize assets under a national necessity clause, your bank account is not yours, it is leased from the state. Diverse your holdings. Cash is good, but precious metals or crypto held in self-custody are harder to freeze with a keystroke. Second, look at your time horizon. If the regime just extended term limits or reset the clock, assume they are staying for 20 years. Adjust your life plan. Is this the place to start a business that requires a 10-year payoff? Probably not. Shift to liquid, mobile assets. Skills are better than factories. A factory can be nationalised. Your ability to code, weld, or practice medicine can be taken across a border. Finally, analyse the emergency powers. Read the fine print of what they just passed. If they can restrict travel during a public order crisis, You need to have your bug-out plan ready before the crisis is declared. Once the decree is signed, the roadblocks go up. The complication here is the retroactive trap. This is a favourite tool of the autocratic legal playbook. They pass a law today that criminalises something you did 5 years ago. Maybe it's tax avoidance. Maybe it's foreign contacts. Maybe it's a social media post. In a normal democracy, ex post facto laws are banned. In a backsliding regime, the captured courts will find a loophole. They will call it a continuing offence. This means you cannot simply behave well from now on. Your past is a minefield. The algorithm of the state will search your history for leverage. If you have ever been a vocal critic, they don't need to arrest you for criticism. They will arrest you because 10 years ago you underpaid a permit fee by $50. And under the new Public Integrity Act, that is a felony. The threat is not just what you do, it is who you were. You are fighting a ghost. This changes your calculus. You cannot simply fly straight. You have to assume you are already guilty of something. And the only variable is whether they decide to pull your file. This creates a psychological prison where you self-censor to avoid triggering the algorithm. Stage 3. The judicial capture. You are at a barbecue. You are talking to a friend who is a local organiser, maybe for a union, maybe for an environmental group. Nothing radical, just active. 2 days later, he is arrested. The charge isn't protesting. The charge is money laundering or racketeering. You watch the news. The prosecutor is a new appointee, a rising star in the party. He holds a press conference detailing how your friend used donation money to buy personal groceries. It sounds bad. It sounds criminal. But you know the guy. You know it's a distortion of a reimbursement error. But then you see the judge. It's not the old grumpy judge who used to sit in that district. It is one of the new ones. One of the ones pushed through in the midnight bill. The trial is fast. The defence motions are denied without comment. The evidence is sealed for national security. Your friend is convicted and sentenced to 10 years. The message is clear. The law is no longer a shield, it is a sword. You look at your own life. You look at the donation you made last year. You look at the contract you signed. You realise that if they shine that spotlight on you, they will find something. The courtroom, once the place you went to get justice, is now the place you go to be destroyed. The failed reaction is, I have nothing to hide. This is the most dangerous sentence in the English language during a slide into autocracy. People watch the show trial and think, well, he must have done something wrong. They believe the smoke implies fire. They cling to the just world fallacy. They think that if they are law-abiding citizens, the courts will protect them. They continue to engage in high-risk litigation. They sue the government for zoning violations. They file wrongful termination suits. They do not understand that the judiciary has been co-opted. They walk into the courtroom expecting a fair fight and walk out with a bankrupting judgment against them. They also fail to see the chilling effect. When one organiser is jailed for a tax error, 1,000 others quit their organisations out of fear. The public goes quiet. The failed reaction is to trust the process when the process has been engineered to produce a specific outcome. You cannot use the master's tools to dismantle the master's house. Logistics for a broken rule of law. If the courts are captured, you must avoid them at all costs. Settlement is better than judgment. If you are targeted, do not try to win on principle. Try to pay the fine and disappear. This is damage control mode. Second, legal diversification. If you have a business, try to incorporate in a jurisdiction that is still somewhat independent, or better yet, internationally. If you have a contract dispute, ensure the arbitration clause specifies a neutral foreign venue. Do not let a local judge decide your fate. Third, digital hygiene as legal defense. In a rule-by-law system, your data is evidence. Encrypt everything. Use disappearing messages. Do not leave a paper trail of intent that can be twisted. If you are an activist, assume your phone will be seized. Do not use biometrics to lock your devices. A finger can be forced onto a sensor. Use a long alphanumeric passcode. And finally, build a legal defense fund network. Not for lawyers can't help you in a rigged court, but for bail, for fines, and for family support. When the state takes the breadwinner, the community must feed the family. This is how resistance movements survive the legal meat grinder. The complication is the informant culture. When the law becomes arbitrary, citizens start using it against each other. It is not just the state coming for you, it is your neighbour. In authoritarian regimes, the authorities encourage denunciation. They set up anonymous hotlines to report unpatriotic behaviour or economic sabotage. Your neighbour, who hates your dog or wants your parking spot, can now report you for a vague crime. The police are obligated to investigate. The captured courts are obligated to prosecute. You get swallowed by the machine because of a petty personal grievance. This destroys social trust. You stop talking to your neighbours. You stop trusting your colleagues. This isolation is exactly what the regime wants. A fragmented population cannot organise. The specific threat here is the low-level snitch. You are not worried about the KGB colonel. You are worried about the guy who runs the homeowners association, who now has a direct line to the state prosecutor. You must navigate a minefield of personal vendettas weaponised by state power. Stage 4. The information fog. It is not a blackout. The internet still works. Instagram loads. TikTok plays funny cat videos. But you are trying to find out what happened at the protest downtown yesterday. You heard sirens. You saw smoke. You type it into the search engine. The results are sterile. A few articles from the official state media saying traffic accident cleared. A few blog posts calling the protesters foreign agents. You try to find the live stream you were watching last night. This content is not available in your region. You check the independent news site you used to trust. The homepage is replaced by a banner. Under investigation for disseminating false information. The site is seized. The journalists are doxxed. But the scary part isn't the censorship. It's the noise. 1,000 bot accounts are flooding every comment section, screaming about a conspiracy theory that blames the opposition. Deepfake audio of the opposition leader admitting to crimes is trending. You look at your phone, a device that contains the sum of human knowledge, and you realise you have no idea what is true. You are in a hall of mirrors. The reality on the street and the reality on the screen have completely diverged. You feel a profound sense of vertigo. This is not 1984. This is Brave New World with an algorithm. The failed reaction is tuning out. The cognitive load of trying to sort truth from lies becomes too high. People get exhausted. They say, all politicians are liars, and they stop paying attention. They retreat into entertainment. They watch sports, they watch movies. They focus on their garden. This is political apathy, and it is a survival mechanism. But it is also a death sentence for democracy. The autocrat doesn't need you to believe his lies. He just needs you to doubt everything else. When you check out, you cede the public square to the loudest voices. Another failed reaction is retreating into echo chambers. People flock to encrypted group chats where rumours spread like wildfire. I heard from a guy who knows a guy that the banks are closing tomorrow. Panic spreads based on bad intel. People make disastrous decisions, selling their homes, fleeing the country, buying useless gear, based on a psyop or a rumour started by a troll farm. In the fog, the herd stampedes off the cliff. Logistics for the information war. You need an intelligence protocol. You cannot be a passive consumer of news. You must be an analyst. First, triangulate. Never trust a single source. If the state media says X and the opposition says Y, look for the international observer who has no skin in the game. Read foreign press. Use a VPN to access news from outside the bubble, until they ban the VPNs. Second, build a web of trust. Establish a network of real people, friends, family, colleagues, in different cities. Verify information manually. Hey, did you see smoke downtown? No, I'm here, it's clear. Human intelligence beats algorithmic feeds. Third, archive everything. When history is being rewritten, memory is resistance. Download reports, save web pages, keep physical books. If the internet is scrubbed, your hard drive might be the only record of what actually happened. And finally, practice silence. In a surveillance state, your data exhaust is dangerous. Limit your digital footprint. Do not post your opinion. Observe, analyse, prepare. Use burner phones for sensitive coordination. Learn to use PGP encryption. The goal is to see through the fog without becoming a beacon for the searchlights. The complication is Pegasus, not the mythical horse, the spyware. The regime does not need to guess who the dissidents are. They buy zero-click exploits from private intelligence firms. They infect your phone without you clicking a link. They turn on your microphone. They read your encrypted signal messages before they are encrypted, right off the screen. This destroys the illusion of privacy. You think you are organising a secret meeting in a secure chat? The police are waiting for you when you arrive. This tech capability means that underground organisation is exponentially harder than it was in the 20th century. You cannot rely on technology to keep you safe. You have to go analogue. Face-to-face meetings in loud parks. Leave the phones at home. Paper notes that are burned. The complication is that to be truly secure, you have to disconnect from the modern world, which makes you slower, less informed, and less effective. It is a catch-22. Use the tech and be watched, or ditch the tech and be blind. Stage 5 and 6, the lock-in. It is election day. You go to your polling place. The line is 4 hours long. When you get to the front, the machine scans your ID. It beeps red. Address mismatch, the volunteer says. You were purged from the rolls. You argue. You show your utility bill. 2 men in blue polo shirts, not police but poll watchers, step forward. They are armed. They are filming you. Is there a problem here? One asks. His hand is resting near his holster. You look at the police officer in the corner. He is looking away. You realise the system has closed. You walk out. You check your phone. The opposition leader has just been disqualified from running due to a campaign finance violation fabricated last week. The ruling party is running unopposed in half the districts. That night, the results come in. 98% victory. The streets are quiet. There are no protests because the new Public Order Act defines a gathering of more than 3 people as a riot. You see a convoy of black trucks driving through the neighborhood. They aren't military. They are the National Guard, or a special task force, directly answerable to the president. They are the parallel state. The transformation is complete. You are no longer a citizen, you are a subject. The failed reaction at this stage is desperation. People realize too late that the window has closed. They try to organize mass protests now when the cost is highest. They get crushed. They try to flee, but capital controls are in place and visas are denied. The tragedy of the Autocracy Roadmap is that the resistance usually spikes right after it becomes futile. The other failed reaction is internalization. People accept the new reality. They teach their children to repeat the slogans. They join the party to get a job. They become part of the system to survive. This is the moral death of the nation. The survivalist who stockpiled guns for a civil war is useless here because there is no civil war. There is just a slow, crushing weight of state power. You can't shoot a law. You can't shoot a polling station closure. The failure was thinking that the Second Amendment would solve a First Amendment problem. Logistics for the endgame. At this point, you have 2 choices: voice or exit. If you choose voice, you are choosing the life of a dissident. You need operational security that rivals the CIA. Safe houses, dead drops, encrypted networks. You must accept that prison is a likely outcome. If you choose exit, you need a lifeboat. This means a second passport, a stash of cash in a foreign currency, and a skill set that is in demand elsewhere. But the most important logistic is community resilience. If you stay, you survive by shrinking your world. You build a micro-community of people you trust with your life. You create a parallel economy, bartering services, sharing food, educating kids outside the propaganda schools. This is anti-politics. You stop trying to change the regime and focus on surviving it. You become the grey man in the grey zone. You keep your head down, you mouth the words, but you keep your mind free. And you wait. Because every authoritarian regime eventually rots from the inside. Your job is to be there, standing, when it finally falls. The tank never came. The general never seized the radio station. The democracy didn't die with a bang. It died with a gavel and a signature. It died because we were looking for monsters, and we missed the termites. We missed the boring, gradual, legalistic erosion of the guardrails. Now look at the checklist we just built. Look at the news today. Look at the appointments. Look at the laws being rushed through at midnight. Ask yourself, what stage are we in? The roadmap isn't a prediction of the future. It is a map of the present. And here is the terrifying thought to leave you with. Once the legal machinery is built to crush dissent, it doesn't matter who wins the next election. The machine is already there, waiting for a hand to turn the key. The danger isn't just the driver, it's the car. If you want to know how to dismantle that machine before it starts its engine, or how to survive if it's already running over you, you need to be here for the next briefing. The roadmap continues, and we are just getting to the hard part. Secure your spot. You survived the simulation. Now survive the reality. Equip yourself at the official supply depot. Because if the world is going to end, you might as well look prepared.